We're recording tonight's shir for my uncle was just passed away, and we're going to do an original topic that we never talked about before, and for Mrs. Farzan. Today's shir is Lilul Nishmat, my uncle Yehuda ben David, and Linda bat Eliyahu Ruach Hashem Tenichena Migan Eden. We want to talk about one of the most fascinating, Rabbi Fran, one of my Rebbes, says one of the most unique and perhaps out of all the laws of the Torah, something that is very counterintuitive and fascinating. And that is, we know that in chapter 71, first chelik of Mishnah Berurah, it's a fascinating halacha, and that is the laws of aninut. And I read for you verbatim from the Shulchan Aruch, the laws of onen. Who's a onen? Mishel met lo met. If somebody, a close blood relative of you dies, sho chayav leitabel alav, that you have, under Torah law, a direct duty to vice kriya, to rip your clothing and conduct the very strict laws of mourning, aveloot from. Who are these people? Your father and mother, which is very severe. The laws extend up to a year. Rachmana litzlan, for your. These are the 7 close blood relatives. The law, all these halachot we're going to talk about apply to tonight. Father and mother, which is head and shoulders above, it extends a lot of the laws for a whole year. Then your children, chas v'shalom, we shouldn't know, like Aaron, Nadav and Avihu died, bar minan, lo alechem lo aleinu. Your brother or sister, your wife, your spouse. These 7 relatives are called, the second they pass away, you get this very, very super powerful status of onen. Aleph, Vav, Nun, Nun. And the Shulchan Aruch here very says that even if you specifically are not the Bechor, like the oldest sibling that's in charge of the burial, you are absolved from all the mitzvahs of the Torah. Tefillin for sure you don't put on. That's another siman in Shulchan Aruch in the beginning, in I think Lamed Daled. We don't want to go into that. That we could give a whole 2-hour class about. But today we wanted to talk about a more global shir. All the positive commandments that you have to proactively carry out, you don't need to. When a person, Rachmana litzlan, bivach nabashe, everybody should live a long, healthy and happy life, peaceful life. So even if you're not the managing partner of the family, you don't have to do any of the positive commandments of the Torah. You don't make a bracha, you don't pray, you don't learn Torah, nothing. You don't even say Shema, which is Midoraita, which is the most magnificent. Because Chazal calls Shema Yisrael Ol Malchut Shamayim. So this is based on, obviously, I just want to know that the Talmudic source for this sugya is a mefurish. It's the beginning of the Talmud, beginning of Shas, Daf 17, Yud Zayin Amud Beis in Brachos, and it says, "Va'afilu im en roitz la'achar matzav v'kros en rashai." So he says, if you are the managing partner, see, this is the major disappointment I had vis-a-vis my uncle, and that's why it's much better, especially Kabbalistically, because the resurrection of dead, everybody should buy a plot of land in Israel and be buried in Israel. It's a much bigger mitzvah, because even Yaakov Avinu, that's why, right, we Jews are named after the patriarch, the Avos, Yaakov Avinu, Zer Anpin, Tiferet, he's the symbol of mercy and Rachamim. And Yaakov Avinu was very adamant that he should be buried in Israel, because what happens is when we die, we're not really dying. Harav ben David said, "Umekayem emunato l'shnei afar." 3 times every day we Jews remember that there is no such thing as death. A lot of the Rishonim that are walking are really dead. The Tzaddikim that are sleeping are just, they don't die, they just sleep. That's why we say, Umekayem emunato l'shnei afar. They're sleeping temporarily in the what? Dirt. Now these people that are sleeping, when they wake up, in Tchiyat HaMetim, Hashem is going to send a heavenly dew. The same heavenly dew He sent to resurrect the Jews from death when they heard God's voice in their ear after the first and second of the 10 commandments. The persons that are buried outside of Israel, they're going to have that tunnel, and their body's going to have to, kind of like a snail, like a roly-poly, roll underground and come into Israel. Then they're going to pop out of that ground alive. And that's a terribly difficult, painful thing, because the body feels pain. But if you're buried in Israel, you just, you sprout like a beautiful plant out of the ground, and you don't have to deal with that. That's why Yaakov Avinu, we learn in Parsha Vayechi, made Yosef swear, and Yosef made last week's Parsha, Vayikachimo, Moshe Rabbeinu, who's greater than Moshe? He fulfilled the promise that the Jews had made to Yosef, and he personally escorted Yosef's bones and body outside of Egypt to Israel. So he says, if you're the managing partner, so to speak, like the Moshe that was in charge of Yosef, it's forbidden for you to do the mitzvah. Even if you want to, you should not say Shema. Because we have to be hyper. There's a big mitzvah Kabbalistically, and unfortunately there's 2 things that you can never avoid in life: paying taxes and dying. So this is a born shear. It was important to give this shear so people should know. Kabbalistically, the soul will not be at peace unless it is buried in the ground. We know that they also clean the body in a mikveh, they do tahara, and there's a shomer, like a mashkiach, that keeps eyes on it and is constantly saying tehillim. And the managing partner has to do it at such lightning speed that even if he wants to be a frummi and a super ultra orthodox Haredi, the Shulchan Aruch says he's doing a mistake, because the way the Rabbeinu Yoina and most of the mitzvah Rishonim understand this phenomena, it goes with the classical rule that, again, we see this in brachot many times. Why is an onen absolved, patur, exempt from carrying out all the mitzvahs, even saying Shema, which is accepting God's kingship upon ourselves, which is such a fundamental mitzvah? Because it's osek v'mitzvah, pater min mitzvah, which means a person has to always prioritize in life. The people that are not organized and don't prioritize in life will never become anything. They're going to become failures, because they don't complete one thing and get to they do half-baked jobs, and it's like a person that cooks his food and challah halfway. It's rejected by the Almighty. Since it's such a big mitzvah to immediately bury the deceased, the Shulchan Aruch says this mitzvah overrides what? Every other mitzvah. So that's the person that is like the oldest sibling, the managing partner, the Yosef of the family, the Yehuda of the family. The Shulchan Aruch paskins clearly, like the Yerushalmi and Rabbeinu Yoina and the Rosh and Taisvis, that such a person would be doing against halacha. Don't think he's doing a good thing by saying Shema, because he should, at such lightning and swift zerizus, he should be burying the person. He's right. But let's say you're the other siblings. Mashallah, a lot of Jews. My Rebbe, Arab Ben David, said the bracha of Moshe Rabbeinu came to fruition in his life. He has colleagues that have 100 grandchildren, and by default have 1,000 great-grandchildren. This is the bracha of Moshe, Yosef Hashem Alechem Kachem 1,000 Pa'amim, V'yivarech etchem kasher diber lachem. So let's say you're one of 10 siblings, and I know my Rebbe, Reb Tzvi, has 12 boys. So Rachmana litzlan, we're not, we say in Terunis, we say Echanak. The Torah should be Magen Ba'adam and they should live a long year, but if after 120 years a person has 12 boys, okay, one of them is in charge of getting him buried ASAP, but how about the other 11? So that the Shulchan Aruch says is a different thing. They really are also technically exempt from all the mitzvahs of the Torah. But if a person, his conscience, he just feels so empty inside by not doing the mitzvah, which means by him saying Shema and Tefillah, anyways, he's not proactively, physically, actively burying his blood relative. So such a person, if he wants to do the mitzvahs, he doesn't have to, but if he wants to, he's not going against halacha. So we see a fundamental thing from the Shulchan Aruch here. There's two categories of people. The category of people that are in charge of the burial, they are exempt from the mitzvahs, and not only exempt, they shouldn't get distracted by the mitzvahs. It's such a big mitzvah to immediately bury the person. They're going against halacha if they even say Shema. There's a second category of people, right? You can't have 10 cooks cook one pot. You can't, right? You can't have 50 people involved in the burial. So they're not in charge and they're not doing. Because there's a second reason the Yerushalmi brings, based on that Mishnah in Yud Zayin and Brachos, that one is out of the guy's so heartbroken and he wants to respect the father. The father is the apple of his eye. He brought him into the being. So therefore, another way of understanding this halacha is not necessarily oisek b'mitzvah mitzvah. Listen, the person that passed away is in chum change. He was your father. He was the apple of your eye. He was your king, right? Every father and mother is a king and queen of their own family. And he was your mentor. So since you're heartbroken and you want to respect him, you don't do the mitzvah. So these people, for them, it's up to them. It's a matter of proper. They don't have to do any mitzvah. They don't have to say Shema. They don't have to pray. They don't have to put tefillin. Tefillin is different. Tefillin they shouldn't definitely not put on. Tefillin anybody shouldn't say in chapter 34 of the Shulchan Aruch. But let's say Shema. If such a person that's not proactively involved with the Chevra Kadisha burying his blood relative, is it okay? Yes. We don't protest against them doing the mitzvah. If it makes them happy to do the mitzvah, they're allowed to. Now, Rav Ovadia, based on this, says something very fascinating. And that is, the Rambam, we know that, especially now, God forbid, like the hostages, let's say they recover the body of the hostage, and the hostage is so deformed because they had shot him to death in such a gruesome way, they don't want the body, or for many times, Baruch Hashem, like I said before, many people the guy passed away in America to Israel. Lazi, how long is the flight?
14, 12 hours.
Yeah. No, 15 hours. Non-stop from El Al is 15 hours from LA to there. So by the time the guy is buried and they all load him on the airplane, let's say it takes 2 days. So even under such circumstances, the Rambam, we could look up the Rambam. The Rambam is not in Hilchot Avel, but believe it or not, is in Hilchot Maaser Sheni. In Hilchot Maaser Sheni, chapter 3, Halacha 5 through 6, the Rambam says that this din of Onen has nothing to do with 24 hours. And I read for you the Rambam verbatim. Onen ze hamitabel alacher mikrovav shehu chayav litabel lahem. This onen, which has to mourn the pain and suffering of his tremendous loss of one of his parents or his siblings or his spouse or his children, Rahman al-Islan, as long as the person's not buried, even if it took many days, he still has the status of onen. Now, from Torah law, onen, Be'ezat Hashem, when the Bet HaMikdash will be rebuilt, one of the things the Onen is not allowed to do, if he's a Kohen, he's not allowed to eat from any of the Korbanot. Also, Onen is not allowed to eat Maser Sheni. And actually, it's such a sinful thing for Onen to eat from holy items that we give him 39 lashes to a person that eats Maser Sheni while he's a Onen. And that's why whenever you bring Maser Sheni and you do Vidu, you thank Hashem, you also proclaim and admit to God, Lo achalti b'menu be'oni. That does not, people that don't know how to translate Chumash would think it's talking about when I was poor. No, he's talking about when I was an Onen. So, this is one of the reasons Moshe Rabbeinu got mad at the children, at Aaron. Because Moshe Rabbeinu said that you should eat. Aaron said, no, I shouldn't. And this was the times, one of the Torahs, when Nadav and Avihu, right? The first person that we learned a lot of the laws of Aninut from is none other than Aharon, the Kohen Gadol. And Moshe Rabbeinu gets angry at them because he says you should eat. And Aaron tells him, hey, no, brother, younger brother, I shouldn't eat. Onen should not eat. Because the Kohen Gadol, that's a whole other sugya that's really not Nogel Halacha Maisa. He has a whole other Shulchan Aruch. Because his Aninut is different. He has to still bring Korbanot because he's the Grand Kohen, master of all the Kohens, kings of the Kohens, but he's still forbidden to eat it from them. So I want to tell you another fascinating Chidush Rav Ovadia brings here on page 119 in chapter volume 1 of Chazan Ovadia about Onen. He brings a smag that he says really like the minhag of Yerushalayim. He says, really, technically, Aninut should stand the whole day. So let's say somebody, after 120 years, or the Grozal says we should pray for women, they should live 127 years because they have a higher life expectancy, like Sarai Menu. 120 years is for men. So, let's say a woman dies after 127 years, like Sarai Menu. The minhag in Israel by the Charedim, by the ultra-Orthodox that actually carry out halacha appropriately is the person will pass away at 9, he'll be already in the ground by 10 a.m. So the Smag brings out a fascinating thing. Really, Midoraisa, these people were onen really for an hour only, right? Really, till night, they shouldn't do any other mitzvahs. Because Aninut, Midoraita, lasts the whole period till nightfall. But the Smag says this is one of the cases. This is clear, by the way, if you learn the Gemara and Bracha stuff, you'd Zayin, this Rav Ovadia brings from the Smag. But he says this is one of the places that the Rabbanan override Torah law. And the minhag is, once the person is in the ground, 6 feet under, the person is buried, the mourners get a certain amount of peace of mind. So therefore, the minhag is that they do start saying Shema and praying Mincha and, even Shacharit, Zman Tefillah in the summer is 11. So they could daven Shachris even. I don't know if they have to probably, but the minhag changed kind of, this is a fascinating case where the minhag of Klal Yisrael changed the halachic Torah. And the last thing I wanted to say is that there's a very fascinating Bir Halacha, and he brings a Naidav Yehuda. The question is that times have changed. In ancient times, the close family members used to actually bury, as you learn in the Gemara Ma'id Katan. But the world has changed tremendously. The Chavetz Chaim brings in his Bir Halacha. There's a fascinating Naidav Yehuda. The Naidav Yehuda says that even according to the first Shita and Shulchan Aruch, that says that if you're the managing director of the funeral, right? You're the director of the funeral service, you're the one in charge to make sure that the person gets buried ASAP, as soon as possible. But let's say you gave it over to the Chevra Kadisha. So the Noda B'Yehuda says, according to the reasoning in the Yerushalmi, that it's because honoring the person. Listen, the person hasn't been buried yet, so we need to honor him. You're still absolved. But according to the reason of the Rabbeinu Yonah and the Taisus and the Rosh, the Noda B'Yehuda Tainas, listen, once you handed over the body to the Chevra Kadisha, they're the ones that have to dig it and are going to wash the body and stuff. So the Noda B'Yehuda says a Chiddush. If you look at the Bir Halacha here in Ein Aleph, he says that even according to the Shulchan Aruch that says the managing director of the family that's in charge of the burial services, even according to him, if he feels really bad and he feels very awkward not saying Shema or Brachot and davening, he's allowed to. That's the Chiddush of the Noda B'Yehuda. So, and Kal V'chomer now. I just want to bring one more halacha here from Rabbi Ovadia, which is fascinating, because we just, in the last few years, we lost Rav Chaim Kanievsky and Rav Steinman, and Rabbi Ovadia in Halacha Bet, page 120 here in volume 1, brings a fascinating halacha. How about your Rebbe or the Gadol Ador that passes away? So he says a person that taught you most of the Torah you know, his students, his disciples, also have a law of oinen, and they should not drink any wine or eat any meat. Not a good day to have shawarma or hamburger. Just like, by the way, the Shach brings a halacha that's very important to know. It's a very important halacha. First of all, there's one klal in Hilchos Avelus, just like in Eruvin. Halacha kedivrei amekel be'avel. Just like halacha kedivrei amekel be'eruvin. Because already people are, it's not good to take the most chumradik shitas for avel. Avel is already heartbroken, so we could take the more lenient opinions. That's one halacha in Hilchos Avelus. And secondly, the issue over here is that a Rebbe is like a spiritual father. Oh, the second klal I wanted to bring that the Shach brings down, all the things that it's forbidden for Avel to do, Kal V'chomer it's forbidden for Oinen to do. So let's say, like Rav Ovadia Paskins like the Rambam. Rav Ovadia says technically if it takes 3 days, somebody dies in LA and it takes him 3 days, he doesn't paskin like the Noda B'Yehuda, as we see. If it takes 3 days to bury the guy from LA to Israel, or Hawaii, it takes another 10 hours, 8 hours. From Hawaii, Yaru to Havas. He's having too much fun surfing, and he passes away in Hawaii. So it takes 3 days to bury him. By the time he passes away, Rav Ovadia Paskins like the Rambam, that for those 3 days he has a law of onen. He would not put on tefillin. Now, would he allowed to have a hamburger? No. He's not allowed to take a shower either. He's not allowed to do any of the things of Avel. Because the Shach says, and all the poskim agree to this klal, just like halacha kidivrei Avel, mekel ba'Avel, we go take the lenient opinions vis-a-vis Avel. Onen has a much stricter status than an Avel. So everything that an Avel is forbidden to do, Kal V'chomer, what? Oinen is forbidden to do. But the Chiddush that Rabbi Ovadia brings here is that as a disciple of his Rebbe also has a din in Oinen, not that he's absolved and exempt from all the mitzvahs of the Torah, but he should not have wine and should not wear leather shoes and not have meat until his Rebbe is buried. And also, like we said, the minhag is mixas hayom kekulos, which means once the Rebbe is buried, he doesn't have a din of oinen anymore. And he says the Gadol Ador, like Rav Ovadia or Rav Chaim Kanievsky, then all of Klal Yisrael should, on that day of him passing, should not have any wine, should not have any meat, because the Gadol Ador is considered the Rabbi Muvak of Klal Yisrael. Some people have a very big paranoia of learning these halachos, but these halachos, like I said, even Moshe Rabbeinu, which was the greatest of all Nevi'im, had to leave the train. Life is like a train. You can't stay on the subsequent way perpetually. It's a big mitzvah that rather than watching YouTube and playing games on their phones, the Avelim, bivach navashe, they should learn these halachas because these are very big sugyas, and we learn all the laws of Tisha B'Av from here, and Hashem should send Mashiach u'macha, Hashem dimam al kol panim v'cherpas amo yasir amen.